A bold vision for America's future. That is the theme for the second night of the DNC in Chicago. Tonight's headliners include former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama, and will feature Vice President Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, as well as Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Joining us now to discuss it all is Rising Friday's host, Amber Duke. Thanks for coming on, Amber.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So tell us what you are looking for tonight, what you are expecting. The Obamas are in town. Democrats love those guys. J.B. Pritzker is a very likable guy. I think even across the aisle, he just has a vibe to him. So what are you looking for? Tell us what you're expecting.
I'm hoping for a little bit more in terms of policy specifics tonight. I think, last night we heard a lot about what the other side wants to do and sort of some fear-mongering about the Republican Party, specifically its platform on abortion. We saw that they brought in some regular women who claim that pro-life laws have caused them to be unable to get miscarriage care. But other than that, it was pretty light on policy. And I was talking to some Democrats around the United Center last evening during some of the speeches, and they said the same thing. They said it felt like a lot of platitudes, and I want to hear a little bit more about what specifically they're going to do for the country, what their vision is. So I'm hopeful that tonight maybe we'll get a little bit more of that. That being said, with the Obamas and Barack Obama specifically, it seems like his plan is to sort of chart out more of an idea of who the future of the Democratic Party is rather than what the policy future of the Democratic Party is. So we'll see what happens. But I think we all can agree that last night ran way too late. Somebody's got to do a better job of keeping time in the United Center.
Yes, for sure. That was truly ridiculous. We've heard from other guests we've had on so far that the atmosphere is not as contentious as previous DNCs, where, obviously last time there was, or if you, go back to Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders, there was still some hurt feelings spilling out in the convention in 2016. Obviously, when Obama ran against Hillary back in 2008, there was still some hurt feelings there. This time, of course, there was no real contest because they just decided to make Kamala Harris the nominee very recently. So there's nothing to be contentious over. Did you see some of that? And, how were people reacting to Joe Biden, a room full of people who participated in his ouster, and he is trying to rally them and actually didn't seem too upset about, I thought he did his job well enough, giving a good speech very late in the evening and really actually seemingly wanting to hand it over to Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I think the reason why it didn't feel contentious is for precisely the reason you said, Robbie, which is that everybody in that room that was part of the Democratic establishment wanted Joe Biden to step aside because they felt like they had a better chance at winning with someone who was a little bit more aware of their surroundings, let's say. And so the only real resentment you had is from Jill and Joe Biden and perhaps Ashley, who introduced the president. And they did get emotional, all three of them. And it's very clear that Joe Biden did not really want to step aside. I mean, all of the reporting suggests he was really forced out of the position in terms of running for re-election. And it was actually, some Democrats were saying to me, and some members of the media who I spoke to last night were saying, it's kind of cruel, actually, that not only did the top Democrats force Biden effectively to step aside, but they also gave him a speaking slot that ended up happening at around, what time did it even come on? Like 11 o'clock Eastern, which is way past his approved schedule, according to reporting from Axios. They made him go after all of these sort of newbies to the Democratic Party who were hoping for their star moment. Jasmine Crockett, for example, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez earlier in the night. He had to even wait for Hillary Clinton, who a lot of Democrats would wish would just go away. And they took away his potential to even speak in a primetime slot because they failed to keep the convention running on time. James Taylor, they had to actually bump entirely. He had had a set that he was going to perform that he couldn't do. And so it was like, okay, so you sideline Biden, and now you also throw him in the latest speaking slot of the night where everyone is exhausted. Nobody wants to listen to speeches anymore. And you force him to go through this and prove, of course, again, that he's capable of doing it, even though most people assume that he's not. And even if he gets through it, somewhat cogently, it's going to confirm all of the priors because it's just a little bit too late for him. So the whole arrangement of it was really, I think, to Biden's detriment. And they almost treated him like a pet that they are just sort of walking around on a leash at this point.
Yeah, I remember like Trump going on at 10:40 and speaking for an hour and a half, Biden speaking around midnight. It's giving the vibe that they don't want people to have a productive day at work the next day. I'm wondering what the economic impacts of these conventions are. I also have big questions as to why people who are not delegates and who are not party officials like going to these events. I'm trying not to be a hater, but I have to be honest. I don't appreciate the political theater. It doesn't make me excited, but it seems that people are very excited to go. And they might be fun. I saw a tweet on X that I'm going to read out. J.B. Pritzker just walked up behind me while AOC began her speech. Wordlessly, he opened a bottle of Johnny Walker Black, poured me a glass, handed it to me, and said, "No one will ever believe you," then walked away. So Amber, I'm wondering, and for the people at home who have never been to one of these, how much of this is a social event?
Yeah, besides whatever JB Pritzker's choice in bourbon is, which I can't say I'm a big fan of. I mean, it is definitely a social event, and the Democrats have given credentials to influencers. So they're trying to make this sort of like a party. Same thing in Milwaukee.
Yeah, and we've heard complaints from, with the dysfunction yesterday, the travel related, the storms, people were delayed. I've heard some frustration from media folks about who was able to get press credentials, who the Democrats are prioritizing. Certainly, it seems like the less adversarial, present company excluded, non-adversarial media were more likely to be, given access to what's going on. They really want this to be celebratory and make it sound like we're all on the same page. And obviously, so many in the media are just are pushing Kamala, are promoting her, are giving her coverage that I think is incredibly fluffy even by modern standards.
I will say, just from a logistical standpoint, the convention center in Milwaukee was better organized for media versus delegate entrances. This is sort of like all one funnel, which makes it kind of difficult. And then I heard some media folks complaining that the setup in terms of where the stage is in the arena makes it hard to get a good shot for TV. So in Milwaukee, they put the stage on the long end of the arena. So all of the media had this long, wide part opposite it to get a nice frame shot where it was centered on their cameras. And because the stage here is on the short side of the arena, you have this big oblong area where people are sitting and sort of craning their necks, and then the media has to try to get this shot, but they're really coming in from the side of the stage. So that was one of the more petty complaints that we've heard. But most people are upset about the timing and just the inability to apparently stick to the timing of the speeches. I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I think just from a standpoint of the organization, the RNC was better.
So I'm curious, with now talks that a ceasefire deal has been reached between the U.S. and Israel, and they're urging Hamas to take this deal that they've come to. There was a banner drop last night among a group of pro-Palestinian activists while Joe Biden was speaking. I've seen videos of people holding up these We Heart Joe sticks with like a sign on them, sort of hitting them in the head, trying to get them to take it down. So there's some tensions around this. Are you expecting anyone to mention the ceasefire deal tonight, given the list of speakers we have?
I would be surprised if they did, just because I think that the speeches to some extent are pre-screened for at least topic. So someone would probably have to go off script in order to do that. But that being said, I did go to the protest yesterday at Union Park. There were about 1,000 people there. and they were not holding back. They had some pretty intense signs calling out the Democrats. I mean, both parties, to be honest, for what they called a genocide. They said that Joe Biden's legacy will be the slaughter of Palestinians. They referred to Kamala as Killer Kamala. And they were chanting that the DNC better watch out because they're going to bring the war home. So, I mean, that's just a short 10-minute walk maybe from the United Center where this protest was taking place, and saw them on my way out last night around 9, 10 o'clock at night. They were still cleaning up from the protest. So they're definitely making it known that they are not happy with either the Democrat or Republican Party. And I think the Democrats are trying as much as they can, at least inside the United Center, to give the impression that there's no daylight among all of them. But obviously, right outside, you see that the progressive activist base of the Democrats, and then, of course, people who would not consider themselves Democrats, too, and would probably vote third party. Cornel West was here yesterday, for example. That they're making very clear that they are not satisfied with the direction that the Democrat Party has gone on Israel.
Amber, thank you so much for checking in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.